Holy smokes, welcome back, everybody. That's right. This is live. It's not a fill-in show. That the wonderful powers to be here at the station were kind enough to run for the last 2 weeks. And it's great to be back. And it's great to play this. I know many of you know that band, know that song. Many of you don't. But it's in honor of Mr. Producer, who's in studio tonight. Cameras are rolling. And he was fortunate enough to attend a Crosby, Stills, Nash concert here recently, and it was pretty awesome, wasn't it? Reportedly, Neil Young didn't show up, so they couldn't do Ohio. That was the song. And they only played... they only brought the 12-string guitar out for one tune. So, but to the nonetheless, they were in the crowd enjoying the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. This week with Tom Crandell is absolutely back, like a bad headache. We are here. We are live. That would be me, your host, Mr. Tom Crandell. You are listening to WBCK News Talk Radio on 95.3 FM. This is not a nightmare. This is the real deal. And as always, I'd love to have you call in, especially if we strike a nerve. Or if you particularly have a nerve you'd like to strike with something else, somebody else, you're welcome to join us. Number is 269-441-9595. And Kalamazoo Way, it's a free call, 269-488-9595. Holy cow, what's been going on for the last 2 weeks? Oh, I know. I heard there was a plane missing.
I missed that.
I think somebody found a pallet today with some strapping on it. And has this... of course, it's a modern-day Amelia Earhart. And the theories are just... It's sickening to have to watch the news because the 24-hour news cycle we're on, they're just... struggling to fill every second with all different angles of what's going on. I think the neatest thing recently, though, is that phone call that came inbound into the cockpit right before he took off, went to the captain, and it was from a woman with a prepaid phone. The phone was bought with a fake ID. And, of course, you know, fake IDs are abundant worldwide, especially, you know, here in America, so that maybe isn't of such import. But nonetheless, I've heard some experts talk about something called Occam's razor, which, for those of you who know what that means, you can step away from the radio for a minute or so, but it's fundamentally, it is whatever the simplest answer is most likely the answer. Occam's razor. And, of course, that simplest is... for some reason, the suicide pilot didn't ditch the plane right away. He turned west, went south, deep into the Indian Ocean, and crashed the jet. And now I did hear a really cool theory, and it's been repeated by Mr. Jeff here. Aliens took the aircraft. Jokingly, I think I did respond to that once, that it's possible the aliens took it, but I think we'll find it. I have my own opinions. Perhaps you have your own. I actually think it's on the ground somewhere. I don't think it's in the water. I think it's on the ground. If it is in the water, I think it might be a dry run to prove they can swipe a big plane, big heavy, and get away with it. The first one they ditched it. Next one maybe not so much. So we'll see. All right, coming up today, I'm going to touch on this week in military history. We're going to go back. I just have a very short blurb on the IRS. Ran into a real first-hand food stamp horror story, which we talked about it before, but I didn't really need to be reminded of it. But since I was irritated, I'm going to irritate you with it. Let's see. There's a holy cow, I can't believe we need this coming up. U.S. Supreme Court 101. Common Core. I have a little bit on Common Core because that's a subject we hear a lot about it, but not much detail. There's a new Gallup poll out about why people will vote for Hillary. Dirty money, prepping. A We'll get to some of that. We'll maybe get to all of it, maybe get to some of it, but what we don't, we'll keep in the files, maybe resurrect next week. March 23rd, 2014. Are you sick of winter yet? Today was brutally windy, cold, and it pretty much sucks. Pretty much. Can't last forever, though. Mother Nature is slowly and methodically marching one step at a time to July and August, when we'll all be bitching about the heat. But in the meantime, we could talk this day in military history. 1775, during a speech before the Second Virginia Convention, Patrick Henry responds to the increasingly oppressive British rule over the American colonies by declaring, that's right, I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Of course, following the signing of the American Declaration of Independence on July 4, 1776, Patrick Henry was appointed governor of Virginia by the Continental Congress. I'm not quite sure how that worked out. Maybe they didn't have voter ID back then. I don't know. And just because I'm a fan of Confederate General Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson, March 23rd, 1862, the famous general suffered a rare defeat when his attack on Union forces in the Shenandoah Valley failed. He was going to disrupt some Union movements, figured he was up against about a couple thousand, 3,000 Union troops. Turns out it was like 9. So his drones were not working. And I thought this was interesting. March 23rd, 1933, the German Reichstag adopted the Enabling Act, which effectively granted Adolf Hitler dictatorial legislative powers. That means the power to rule by decree. Dictatorial legislative powers. I wonder if Hitler was using a pen. Perhaps. Maybe he was using a pen. Perhaps he was using the phone, too. I don't know. Oh, and because government always does the right thing for the people, March 23rd, 1942, during World War II, the U.S. government began moving... I guess this wasn't very popular, among the Japanese Americans anyways. Began moving Japanese Americans from their West Coast homes to vacation villas and detention centers. Detention centers. But don't worry, the Supreme Court upheld that. So, and they never get anything wrong, whether it's in the 19th century, 17th century, it'd be the 19th century, 20th century, and 21st century. They never get anything wrong. U.S. Supreme Court. Because my dad was there, this is worth noting. March 23rd, 1945, U.S. First Army and the elements of the U.S. Third Army are extending their bridgeheads over the Rhine. So that was pretty cool. And actually, back in the 80s, I had an opportunity to visit the Remagen Bridge. That was pretty cool. Now, the U.S. Army is always evolving. March 23rd, 1957, they sold their last homing pigeons. I wonder if we used them in Korea. I'll bet we did. I'll bet it's possible. Of course, in this day and age, sometimes the lowest technology is the ones they can't. It's the ones they can't listen to. And all we'd really need to do would be to go to school in the Taliban and the jihadists around the world. I think there was a phase when they weren't using electronics. It was all courier, and no decisions weren't quickly being made, but the ones that were being made were not being listened in on. March 23rd, 1961, this comes up because occasionally we'll hear about a U.S. serviceman or servicewoman that loses their life in Syria or some obscure country. 1961, one of the first American casualties in Southeast Asia, an intelligence gathering plane en route from Laos to Saigon, is shot down in central Laos. Oh, and if we want a lesson on how to deal with the Russians, how about this? March 23rd, 1983. Yes, that would be during President Reagan's first term. In an address to the nation, President Ronald Reagan proposes that the U.S. embark on a program to develop anti-missile technology that would make the country nearly impervious to attack by nuclear missiles. I think that was called Star Wars, wasn't it? And, of course, that was roundly supported by the Democrats. No, actually, it wasn't. It was ridiculed. That's what it was. It was roundly ridiculed by the opposing political party. Except that's now what everybody wants to sell to Israel, and seems like SDI is working pretty darn good. But SDI was a precursor to spending Russia into the poorhouse. Let's see, 1988, President Reagan gem. March 23rd, 1988, President Reagan announced he would visit the Soviet Union for the first time for his fourth summit meeting with Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev. And that's interesting that while Reagan was bowing up, he never shirked from one-on-one. He was always confident, and I think that's a proof positive of that. And this might go down to be one of the saddest days in Afghanistan history, only because of what the future portends for these people. March 23rd, 2002, girls in Afghanistan celebrated their return to school for the first time in years. Huh. Girls? Schools? Girls going to schools? I guess that's okay. All right. But I'm wondering what's going to happen. And, I recently met a former Marine, not an ex-Marine, because that means she got kicked out. And he's not a Marine, because that would imply active duty. But reportedly, they prefer former Marines. His second tour was when they were shrinking back. And as they would shrink back their patrols and everything else, the Taliban would move in. It's like a balloon, a water balloon. They just squeeze one end and the other end goes the other direction. And March 23rd, 2003, in the fifth day of Operation Iraqi Freedom, U.S.-led warplanes and helicopters attacked Republican Guard units defending Baghdad, while ground troops advanced to within 50 miles of the Iraqi capital. Now, it has been a couple of weeks. I'm pretty much familiar with the lights and the buttons I'm looking at. There's one button that's kind of bothering me. I'm not quite sure. Oh! I guess that's our Get Banned in Ireland and Scotland button. Now we have to play this for at least 10 seconds. Okay, that's long enough. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. We've been off for a couple of weeks, and we appreciate you tuning back in. You're listening to This Week with Tom Crandell, and I would be the janitor extraordinaire, Tom Crandell, the host of this whole thing. Mr. Jeff's in studio with Access Vision. What a great thing that is. I've been following your Access Vision on Facebook. You got to do a lot of cool things over there, and it's the nice thing is it's not polluted by political ideology. It's just what some people think is fun or interesting or informative. Might be a city council meeting, or might be a TV show about a radio show. and it's very cool. Check it out, Access Vision. Also, you can check us out on Facebook. I'd appreciate the support there. So would Mr. Jeff. He does a heck of a job on Facebook. And, of course, he lets us out on YouTube where we can get banned in Ireland and Scotland. All right, before we get into a heavy subject as in what Louisiana's doing with food stamp cards, I did stumble across something on a business website, Fox Business. And everybody tells you, it says, tell your doctors everything. Tell your doctors everything. Well, there are 4 things you should not tell your doctor. And, of course, you can intuitively stretch this to others as well. And, in fact, the first one, don't give your Social Security number. I watched a guy get into an argument out in New Mexico buying mule deer permits when the Kmart clerk asked for a Social Security number. Yeah, I'm not going to get it. And half hour later, after a couple of managers showed up, they sold him the license without the Social Security number. It used to be that your Social Security number was also your health insurance ID, but no longer. So why do doctors still ask for it? Because guess what? They never changed their forms. It's still there. It's a blank. You need to fill it in. Now, I would be interested to know if any of you, the number is 4419595. If any of you actually have refused to give your Social Security number, I would really be fascinated with some of the responses you got. And I've refused, and they just skipped over it. But they weren't ashamed for asking, but they did skip over it when I refused to give it. But because the form's still listed, they're used to asking for it because it's what they've always done. But that's no reason for you to simply give it up. Leave it blank. Okay, well, on that same line, family members' Social Security numbers. Basically, you see the trend here? Do not give your Social Security numbers out, nor your family members. The other thing they're saying is do not give your email address to your doctor. It's quite convenient to communicate via email. But as we've all learned from countless healthcare breach stories in the past year, it's also a very convenient way for others to eavesdrop on our correspondence or steal our identities. So it really is paying particular attention to your electronic profile. If you want to keep your medical information private, and of course you do, even with this Affordable Care Act fiasco and the intrusions they're taking, reportedly doctors have to ask a whole lot of other questions, and the urban myth now is they're keeping 2 sets of books, but don't even give your email to the doc. Don't even give the option to communicate via email. Now, many practices may have a secure portal where you can log in to see test results, but they should never email that kind of thing. So don't give your email address out. And lastly, don't give out any financial information not used to pay your immediate bill. And actually, I suppose there's going to be some effort to curtail some of that e-paying of bills, although it's just terribly convenient. 4 things not to tell your doctor. Think about that. And as always, you're welcome to join the show if you have a horror story of withholding your Social Security number. It'd be fun to hear it. I think other people would find it informative, entertaining. And so give us a call, 4419595. Got about a minute left before we take a break at the bottom of the hour. Next up, we'll get right into this after the bottom of the hour. Louisiana bans the use of welfare benefits for tattoos, lingerie, and jewelry. Oh, there you go. That's curbing in the waist. Louisiana welfare recipients will be prohibited from spending the federal assistance at lingerie shops. Like, we have to pass a law about this? Like, is there anything else we should be passing laws about on food stamp cards? Or is it like whack-a-mole? The Department of Children and Family Services announced the emergency regulations late Thursday. Okay, both program cash assistance. The agency decided to ban the use of electronic benefit cards, which work as debit cards at stores that don't sell items that are considered basic needs for families. Let's take a break. Don't go away. It's just going to be a minute. It's going to be a short break. We'll be right back. Hello, everyone. You're listening to This Week with Tom Crandell and Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Turns out they had very few top chart hits, right? They had very, very few hits. A lot of album cuts made them, but singles, right? That's what you're talking about, singles? So maybe things sweeten up over time, and some of us real fans, the time softens the edges of any harsh memories, I suppose. Came back to this Louisiana thing. Isn't that ridiculous that we have to ban tattoos, lingerie, and jewelry? And then all the stories, I've talked about it before. I have firsthand knowledge of store manager, party store manager up north. Customer kept coming in and buying all the 4 packaged apples, 4 apples together, saran wrap. Buy every package. There might be 20 of them in his cart. And he remarked, "I bet you wonder why I buy all these apples." And she said, "Well, no, not really. He said, I'm feeding the deer." And he whips out his EBT card. So he's buying deer food with his EBT card. And of course, there's always that lobster thing. In fact, I'd like to, again, this is a live show. You're welcome to join us. And people ask, what do you do on your show? Well, it's kind of current events. I like to pick on stupid stuff because that's where we learn. I mean, so one of us, if you make a mistake, that's how you learn. That's how you're supposed to learn. Somebody who goes through life and never makes a mistake is either a narcissist or has never had an opportunity to learn from their mistakes, which is sad. But I think the trend is to broaden the use of EBT cards. It's been a successful trend. It's worked wonderfully, especially advertising them down in Mexico City. But we're getting off the reservation a little bit, some of these unintended consequences. Firsthand, I had a customer tell me last week they buy lots of EBT cards. Now, what do I do with this information? Absolutely nothing other than to lay awake at night thinking about it, or at least a little bit. That this, because the threshold has been lowered so far so that there's all kinds of newly eligible people who may not need the card, but they're eligible, but they feel entitled. They're jumping. I mean, the merry-go-round's spinning. Let's hop on, hon. Let's get ourselves a card. And, you buy a $200 EBT card for $100. You get the pin. You pay the $100 cash to the deadbeat. And then the person who buys it goes and gets $200 worth of food. And the shame of it is there are people out there who need this card. And they're always trotted out as the ones of why we have this card. But the hangers-on, the camp followers are polluting the whole idea. And worse yet, I don't know who came up with the idea to let party stores take the EBT cards. But, again, I talked to a party store manager here in town. And, you have to have so much edible and prepared foods and what have you, and milk and such. But you buy a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese at a gas station party store and you pay X. You buy it at Walmart or Meijer, you pay Y. And I think the larger question is, any of you listeners, when was the last time you bought any food that went on your kitchen table for breakfast, lunch, or dinner from a party store? I mean, who does that? That makes no sense at all. I mean, you might be short on milk. It's late. The gas station's right there. Kids are hungry. Everybody's screaming. You grab a milk and you go. That's one thing. But vegetables and protein and what have you, I don't know. Now, we have to ban we actually have to pass laws for this. But kudos to Louisiana. Old Bobby Jindal down there. He's doing a heck of a job. See, talking about the Supreme Court earlier, and what was that? That was in the military history. Oh, that was the moving the Japanese Americans. Well, my friend Alex, still looking for me, and we came up with some Supreme Court decisions that should hit us right between the eyes, that these people with these black robes don't always get it right. And there was there was a Supreme Court decision in 1857, the Dred Scott decision. Now, some of you may know what that is, but basically it upheld the Fugitive Slave Act, which allowed fugitive slaves to be captured and returned back to their masters. The language of the Chief Justice was atrocious. It was beyond racism, and it was totally devoid of humanity. These are some of the things he said. It's almost hard to read it, but it's what he said, and it's what the nation or at least part of the nation, because there were many who were anti-slavery, obviously. Blacks were an inferior order and altogether unfit to associate with the white race. That's repugnant. Taney wrote, they had no rights that the white man was bound to respect. That's enough to make you vomit. The Negro might justly and lawfully be reduced to slavery for his own benefit. Wow. Now, there's another ruling, and it has to do with separate but equal. And it was, for those who are students of this, you would know this, Plessy v. Ferguson. 1896, the court upheld Southern apartheid, declaring separate black and white facilities constitutional. Let's see, there was a justice, Harlan. He dissented, calling the Constitution colorblind. It took 58 years for the Supreme Court to declare Justice Harlan correct. Plessy v. Ferguson. These people in the high ivory tower are jamming it to us now. And it's not even the Supreme Court. They're jamming us at other levels. We're going to get to that on. Oh, gosh. There's a federal judge that called building a border fence racism. And, of course, this whole gay marriage debacle. Here's a scary one. It's called a Schenck ruling, 1919. It ruled that harmless leaflets were a clear and present danger to national security under the 1917 Espionage Act. Of course, that absurdity was absolutely manifest. 441-9595, if you have an opinion on this. Ever since then, the Supreme Court nearly has always taken the side of so-called national security. And in this day and age, really, it's whistleblowers going against the government. Government hates you doing that. They detest leakers because they reveal embarrassing truths. And that's why federal prosecutors love sealed indictments. And they get judges to approve them. And even David Carr, media critic of the New York Times, calls the Espionage Act an ad hoc official secrets act, which is not a law that has ever found traction in America. The people's right to know is viewed as superseding the government's right to hide its business. I thought the government was supposed to be of the people and by the people, but apparently it is now a separate entity, and they like to hide their business from us pesky little serfs. There are many, many more, but that's just an example of where this is going wrong. And now we have, and just recently it was Michigan, we made the national news because we had a federal judge declare a constitutional, it was a ballot initiative, was not a law passed through Lansing and signed by the governor, declaring the marriage between a man and a woman. We've had one judge overturn the will of 53% of the Michigan residents in legalizing gay marriage. And it really kind of goes back to the Defense of Marriage Act during the Clinton years. The constitutional problem for all of us is one state is not supposed to be able to pass laws for that state and then through a federal jurisprudence system impose that law on all other states. But that's exactly what's happening here. And it won't stop at gay marriage. In fact, now they're a little further down here. Find it here. Oh, yeah. Obama appointed judge rules that U.S. border fence is racist. So we have judges absolutely ruling the roost, forcing, I guess, acquiescence onto states that didn't want it. I think the danger here is is this judge that's ruling the U.S. border fence is racist. So to defend our borders is racism. I wonder, what would he say about pits full of alligators? Because alligators, they don't care what you look like. They'll eat you all the same. Does anyone remember the name Cass Sunstein? He was a former Obama administration official, bureaucrat. He was an advisor. And he is calling truth a disease. He is not happy with social networks and how they can, like wildfire, spread stories. And of course, that's why we got Snopes. But he once proposed that the state should cognitively infiltrate anti-government groups. And, you know, he actually believes this. There are many people who do in power. These are the people who belong in government, and it's them. These secrets are for them to know and for us not to know. But this guy's not going to go away. Government lies are our country's heritage. According to Andrew Napolitano, we allow our leaders to regulate under false pretenses every area of our supposedly free lives. What we eat, how our money is spent, how we protect ourselves. And this is in a book he wrote, Lies the Government Told You. So that's something to consider, that there are ramifications, and you can be for or against gay marriage, but if a state speaks out, I don't know. Fundamentally, there's a problem where one person with a robe, a black robe, can sway the rule in a state. Okay, that's enough on the Supreme Court. Hopefully it won't keep us up tonight. Common Core has come up recently, and Alex did fish me out some things. I got this on my own, though, from the Federalist Papers. Apparently we're changing some terminology. And in fact, the old language and the new language. There's old language and now there's new language. Basically, it's the federal Leviathan, teaching from up on high to us down here in the low of how we can better educate our kids because they've done such a darn fine job of it so far. We used to have to do word problems. Susie got 10. Billy got 3 more than Susie. Jenny got 1 less than Billy. How many did they have when the teacher had 6 left? That's now being referred to as a math situation. Do you remember having to learn how to carry the 1? Now that's being called regroup 10 ones as a 10. Old language. Borrow. You have to borrow from one to the next. Take a 10 and regroup it as 10 ones. Okay, those I kind of get. What about a new word for add? It's called increase. And if you have to have a new word for add, we have a new word for subtract, and it is decrease. And there is a math relationship issue where we look at something as more than or fewer than or equal to, greater than, less than, equal to. Now the new language is compare. Be sensitive when you compare to. And the teacher might often in the past have asked us, how do you know this? How do you know this is your answer? Now we're asking the little chillin to give us evidence. Okay. I look at a problem here, the old way to solve an addition problem. I'll hold it up for the TV camera. Where are we at? Oh, there we are. Okay. When you're adding the number 62 plus 26 to get 88, we'll show you how we used to do it when we were like leading the world in bright children. And now we'll show you how when we suck at bright children in the world. We'll show you how Common Core does that. So maybe catch that on YouTube or Facebook or catch it out on Access Vision. It's quite humorous, really. Oh, of course it's right. It makes sense, some of that, but we'll look. Alex got me another thing on Common Core. I got to find it, though. The Gallup Corporation took a poll recently, and it's what was the best thing about Hillary Clinton, according to Gallup. And of course, polls can be used to, if they're well-written polls, they're very good. But, each side writes a poll that floats their own boat. And this one, though, it comes from Tea Party News Network. I know, calm down. So if any of you out there are anti-Tea Party, you might not want to listen to this. Or maybe you'll call me up and bitch at me, 441-9595. But I think this goes to the people, the sheeple that are voting for her and for others. All right, we're going to take a break. It's going to be a short break. We'll be right back. I don't know if any of you heard that, but Mr. Justin here making technical adjustments. Crosby, Stills, and Nash. That must have been. Where'd you actually go see that concert, Jeff?
Firekeepers.
Firekeepers. Oh, it's close. There you go. But long ago, they would never have dreamed so many concerts at casinos. It was always concert halls. I have a caller in line one. What's your name?
Hi, this is Brad in Galesburg.
Hey, Brad. Welcome back, man. Happy to have you on board. What's going on?
Well, I just want to let you know that, I really enjoy listening to your show, and I'm usually cooking at this time of night, so I don't usually call in, but I really enjoy listening to what you share, and I look forward to Sundays at this time just so I can listen to you.
Well, awesome, Brad. Wow, that makes me feel good. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, because if you listen to a radio station, you do give up some of your time, don't you?
Oh, yeah. But, really, sometimes I think just because maybe you don't get a lot of feedback, during the show, I think, there's a lot of people listening that just don't take the time to call and whatnot. But, I enjoy your, what you have to offer, like on saving up for the hard times and that type of thing. And, I don't know. It's a good show, and I enjoy it, and it's just part of my Sunday evening.
Brad, I appreciate your comments, and we aren't related, right?
No, we aren't. No.
Okay, all right, we're not related. Well, we had an opportunity to come to the station and do this, and I had zero experience in it. But everybody, as old as coffee clatching in a barber shop has been in Americana, right? Floyd's Barber Shop. That's all we're doing. That's all we're really doing, isn't it? We're just we're just coffee clatching, and if you want to call in and clatch a little bit with us, that's great, And
it's like sitting around the old Cracker Barrel.
Kinda. Except I think Tim might get a little peeved if I start throwing my peanut shells on his floor.
Yeah, that might be a problem.
We won't do that. Well, Brad, I appreciate your comments. Thanks for tuning in, and you have a wonderful week coming up, all right?
Hey, you too, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Okay, thanks, Brad. I appreciate that very much. That was very nice of that Brad and Galesburg Brad. Thanks very much, Brad. I appreciate that. Of course, now he might turn me off when I tell him why people are going to vote for Hillary. Actually, probably not. I think he might enjoy why, but it's not because of her foreign policy experience, which she totally botched in Benghazi. It's because she's going to break a gender gap. They're going to vote for her because she's a woman. And another caller in line one. What's your name?
Hi, it's Dave.
Hey, Dave. Welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Thanks much. You were talking about the polls, how they can be manipulated to read whatever you want. I just got the Republican Party poll again for the 48th time.
They asked you to participate in the poll?
They put out.
They sent the poll to you, and you responded?
Yeah, they sent, exactly.
Okay, and?
they do the same thing.
Sure.
I mean, they ask the most leading stupid questions, like, do you want your throat cut? No, I don't want it. Yeah, well, that's what we agree. So, but if you take polls at their face value, it's pretty sad.
It's all about manipulating opinion. It's not really about finding the best way forward. It's flat out about manipulating public opinion. And both parties want to do it. Because if you manipulate enough, you win. You win elections, and elections matter.
Well, exactly. Well, that way they got bragging. Hey, look, we got 40,000 people, or 49%, 50% of the people agree with this.
Yeah.
Well, they asked it with such a leading question, you couldn't help but go there.
Yeah. And the other thing is, quite often, the New York Times is quite guilty of this. They'll run a poll about how bad Republicans are. But to get favorable poll results, they need to sample significantly larger percentages of the population of Democrats. So rather than 50-50 Republican-Democrat and everything, it's like 65-35. And then they get a poll where Democrats are 10 points ahead of the Republicans. And I've no doubt there are Republican campaigns, either at the state level or the national level, that it's all about posturing and winning people's affection and manipulating public opinion. And no, you're totally right. And of course we have add in that mix. It's like a little gasoline on the fire. We have a 24-hour news cycle now. What are they going to talk about for 24 hours? Got to have a poll.
Well,
let's do a poll.
Well, I don't know about the poll. They're talking about the plane. 24/7. I'm so sick of that. I can't even turn on the TV anymore. Hardly.
I know it. Hey, Dave, thanks for calling in. Where are you from? Battle Creek?
No, from Ceresco, the beautiful hub of Calhoun County.
The best damn site around.
It used to be the best damn site.
Hey, is that gone now?
Pretty much all of it.
Some of our listeners may not know, but Ceresco had a beautiful dam, and who wanted it gone? The people or the state?
No, the state wanted it gone for years.
I think the people kind of liked it as it was, didn't it?
Well, I think the people that had the pontoon boats up there in the dam kind of wanted it to stay, I think.
Well, yeah, their lakefront property went not lakefront property, didn't it?
Yeah, well, they just gained more property is all it is.
Well.
Yeah.
Hey,
now,
I hope the weather gets warmer in Ceresco, Dave, and I'd like to thank you for calling in. It was a pleasure having you on the program, actually, because you're very perceptive. The polls are a bunch of crap. Now, some polls are good. The trouble is, you don't know unless you get in the meat of it, and they never give us the meat of it. And most people are so busy going to work every day and coming home and putting food on the table and doing whatever, putting out fires. We just don't have it. But speaking of dirty money, a while back, I saw a piece on the Koch brothers and how much money they donate. I guess we got another caller. Hey, 3 times the charm. What's your name? Where are you from?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is Bill, and
Bill the man.
I beg pardon?
Bill the man.
Yeah, Bill the man.
You're the man, baby. Where are you calling from, Bill?
Right here in Marshall.
Marshall, a quaint little place. Yes.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's on your mind, Bill?
Well, I'm concerned about our border between Mexico and the United States.
As well, you should be. I'm
a member of I was a member for a few years with the Sons of the American Revolution.
Ooh.
And
that sounds scary.
Yeah, well, one of the things, what was part of our creed was protecting our borders.
Yeah.
And we are a sovereign nation, and a sovereign nation protects their border.
That's right.
And we're not doing it.
Did you actually travel to the Southwest, or were you just supporting them from up here?
I'm supporting them from up here.
What kind of support? Did you give money?
No, just
a voice in the crowd supporting the cause.
Voice in the crowd.
Well, there's nothing wrong with Patrick Henry was a voice in the crowd. You're in good company.
We have a legal way to become to come into the country, and years ago, back with Eisenhower, and before that, we had a system set up, and we adhered to it. We let in so many people from other countries.
But it's corrupted, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Very corrupted.
Yeah.
Well, the old adage, and Henry Ford taught us this in his first plants, immigrants need to assimilate. Assimilate means learn the language, speak the language, learn the culture, take on the culture, dress as the culture. Be part of your new culture. Assimilate into it. Meld into it.
That's right.
Because if you don't assimilate, do you know what you do? There's only one other option. If you do not assimilate, the only other true option is colonize.
That's right.
And,
that's right. And
Henry Ford had that problem on his shop floor. That's why he ran English classes. That's why he took these immigrants out of their home uniforms, their home outfits, and the checks and the poles. They all had their own colors and such. The epaulets on the shoulders and what have you. He made them all dress like businessmen, and because it's assimilation or not. It's a pleasure having somebody from Marshall call.
Well, good.
I think that is the jewel. No disrespect to Battle Creek, but Marshall is a jewel.
Well, my wife and I, my wife especially, has been faithfully listening to you. And,
I've got to cut you off because I want you calling. I've only got 5 seconds left, so I've got to cut you off. I'm grateful for the support, and so is Mr. Jeff. You guys have a great week. We will see you next Sunday.